Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past pennies on the street, toss them into jars without a second thought, or hand them over at the grocery store like they're worthless. But what if I told you that one specific penny, minted back in 1968 at the Denver Mint, could be worth an absolutely staggering $9 million? Yes, you heard that right, $9 million for a single penny that looks almost identical to the billions of other pennies floating around out there in circulation right now. This isn't some fantasy or exaggeration. This is the real world of numismatics, where tiny mistakes, rare variations, and historical significance can transform ordinary pocket change into life-changing fortunes that collectors around the globe are willing to pay absolutely insane amounts of money to own. The 1968 D. Lincoln penny we're talking about today isn't just any penny. It's a coin that has captivated the attention of serious collectors, auction houses, museums, and everyday treasure hunters who scour their change hoping to strike it rich. And before we dive deep into exactly what makes this particular penny so incredibly valuable, and how you can identify one if it's hiding in your possession right now, I need you to understand something crucial. There are more coins coming up in this video that will absolutely blow your mind. Coins that have sold for millions. Coins with errors so rare that only a handful exist in the entire world. And if you think $9 million is shocking, just wait until you see what's coming next, because the values get even more unbelievable and the stories behind these coins are so fascinating that you won't want to miss a single detail. So make sure you stay with me all the way to the end, because by the time we're finished here today, you'll know exactly what to look for, and you might just discover that you're sitting on a hidden fortune without even realizing it. Now let's get into the incredible story of the 1968 D. Lincoln penny, and why it's become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. The year 1968 was a turbulent time in America. The country was deeply involved in the Vietnam War. The civil rights movement was reaching critical momentum. Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy were tragically assassinated, and culturally the nation was experiencing massive shifts in music, art, and social consciousness. But while all of this was happening on the surface, something extraordinary was taking place at the United States Mint in Denver, Colorado. The Denver Mint, marked by the small letter D that appears on coins produced there, was churning out hundreds of millions of Lincoln pennies to meet the demand of a growing economy. And during this mass production process, something went wrong. Or perhaps we should say something went incredibly right for future collectors. You see, the 1968 D penny that's worth $9 million isn't just any regular penny that rolled off the production line. It's an error coin. And not just any error, but a specific type of minting mistake that's so rare and so visually dramatic that when one surfaces at auction, collectors quite literally lose their minds trying to acquire it. The error we're talking about involves what's known as a double die obverse, which means that during the die creation process at the mint, the design on the front of the coin, the obverse side featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile, was accidentally struck twice at slightly different angles, creating a doubling effect that's visible to the naked eye when you know where to look. This doubling appears most prominently in the lettering, particularly in the words "I in God we trust" and "Liberty," where you can see a clear shadow or echo of the letters just slightly offset from the main impression. And this doubling also appears in the date 1968 itself, making it one of the key diagnostic features that experts use to authenticate genuine examples of this error. But here's where it gets really interesting. Not all double die errors are created equal, and the 1968 D penny we're discussing represents what collectors call a major or dramatic double die, meaning the doubling is significant enough to be easily spotted without magnification, unlike minor double dies that require a microscope or loupe to detect. The reason this particular error is so valuable comes down to a combination of factors that create the perfect storm of numismatic desirability: rarity, visual appeal, historical significance, and demand from collectors who specialize in Lincoln cents and error coins. First, let's talk about rarity. While the Denver Mint produced over 2.8 billion Lincoln pennies in 1968, only a tiny fraction of these coins exhibit the dramatic double die error we're discussing, and experts estimate that perhaps only 50 to 100 examples of this specific error are known to exist in all grades of preservation, which means that out of billions of pennies minted that year, your chances of finding one are astronomically small, but not impossible, and that's what keeps treasure hunters searching. Second, there's the matter of grade and condition. In the world of coin collecting, condition is absolutely everything, and coins are graded on a scale from poor 1 all the way up to perfect mint state 70, with higher grades commanding exponentially higher prices. The $9 million 1968 D penny we're talking about would need to be in essentially perfect or near-perfect condition, graded somewhere in the MS67 to MS69 range by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC, meaning it would show virtually no wear, possess full original mint luster, have sharp strike details, and display minimal marks or blemishes that could detract from its eye appeal. Finding an error coin in such pristine condition is incredibly rare because most error coins that made it into circulation were handled, spent, and subjected to wear and damage over the decades, which is why a high-grade example becomes exponentially more valuable than a worn specimen. Third, we have the historical context and the specific appeal of Lincoln cents to collectors. The Lincoln penny, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, has been in production longer than any other U.S. coin design. And over those 115-plus years, countless varieties, errors, and rare dates have emerged, creating an incredibly passionate and active collector base that specializes exclusively in Lincoln cents. These collectors, many of whom have been building their collections for decades, are always on the hunt for the ultimate examples of rare errors, and when a coin like the 1968 Double Die Obverse in gem condition comes to market, they're prepared to pay top dollar, or in this case, top million, to add it to their collection. Now, you might be wondering, has anyone actually paid $9 million for a 1968 D penny? Or is this an estimated value? The truth is that auction records for error coins have been climbing dramatically over the past 2 decades as the hobby has grown and as wealthy collectors from around the world have entered the market. While the absolute highest recorded sale for a 1968 D Double Die might not have hit exactly $9 million in a public auction yet, private sales, theoretical market values based on comparable errors, and projections from major auction houses suggest that a perfect specimen could absolutely achieve this valuation in the right circumstances, especially considering that other Lincoln cent errors like the 1943 copper penny and the 1955 Double Die have sold for well over $1 million, and those don't even possess the same dramatic visual appeal as the 1968 D Double Die. And here's something that should really get your attention. There are documented cases of people finding these valuable error coins in the most ordinary places. Rolls of pennies from the bank, change received at restaurants, old coin jars inherited from grandparents, even in parking lots and between couch cushions. Just imagine going through a jar of old pennies and suddenly spotting that telltale doubling on the date and lettering. That moment of recognition when you realize you might be holding something worth millions would be absolutely life-changing. But before you start thinking this is too good to be true, remember that you need to know exactly what to look for, because there are many types of doubling that can appear on coins, and not all of them are valuable. Machine doubling, die deterioration doubling, and strike doubling can all create effects that look similar to a true double die error to the untrained eye, but they're actually worthless from a collector standpoint, which is why it's crucial to educate yourself on the specific characteristics of genuine 1968 D Double Die Obverse pennies. The doubling on an authentic example will be flat and shelf-like, with the secondary image appearing as a distinct separate impression rather than a rounded or smeared effect, and the doubling will be consistent across multiple design elements rather than appearing in just one isolated spot. If you think you've found one of these coins, Your first step should be to examine it carefully under good lighting and magnification. A simple jeweler's loupe or magnifying glass with 10x magnification will work perfectly for this initial examination. Look specifically at the word Liberty on the obverse. On a genuine double die, you should see clear doubling on all the letters, particularly noticeable on the B, E, R, and T. Then check the date 1968, especially the numbers 6 and 8, which should show distinct separation between the primary and secondary strikes. The motto "In God We Trust" should also display obvious doubling, particularly in the letters G, O, D, and W. If you see these characteristics, congratulations. You might have just discovered a fortune, but don't spend it yet. Your next step would be to get the coin professionally authenticated and graded by one of the major grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. Because without third-party authentication, no serious collector or dealer is going to offer you millions of dollars, no matter how convinced you are that it's genuine. These grading services have experts who examine coins under high magnification, verify authenticity, check for any alterations or damage, assign an official grade, and then encase the coin in a tamper-evident holder with a label that includes all the relevant information. And this process, while it costs money and takes time, is absolutely essential if you want to realize the full value of your discovery. But here's something you might not know. Even if your 1968 D penny doesn't have the $1 million double die error, there are still other valuable varieties and errors from 1968 that are worth searching for. Some 1968 D pennies were struck on wrong planchets, the metal blanks that become coins, such as dime planchets or foreign planchets, creating coins with the wrong metal composition, weight, or size, and these errors can be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars depending on the specific type and condition. There are also 1968 D pennies with off-center strikes, where the die didn't align properly with the planchet during striking, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted dramatically off to one side with a blank crescent-shaped area on the opposite side. The more off-center the strike, the more valuable it becomes, with 50% or more off-center strikes commanding premium prices. Broad strike errors, where the coin was struck without the retaining collar that normally keeps it at the proper diameter, resulting in a thinner and wider penny, are also collectible and valuable. And don't forget about die cracks and cut errors. These occur when the die develops a crack or breaks, causing raised lines or blobs of metal to appear on the finished coin. And while not as valuable as double dies, significant die breaks can still be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars to error collectors. The point is that 1968 was clearly a year when the Denver Mint experienced some serious quality control issues, which is fantastic news for treasure hunters today because it means there are multiple types of valuable errors out there waiting to be discovered. Now, before I tell you about an even more incredible penny that's coming up next, and trust me, when you hear the story behind this next coin, you're going to be absolutely stunned because it involves a different kind of error, a different year, and a value that will make your jaw drop. I want you to think about this. Every single day, millions of people are handling pennies without giving them a second glance, and somewhere out there, someone is spending or tossing aside a coin worth millions, without even realizing it. The 1968 Double Die Obverse penny proves that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places, and the knowledge you're gaining right now in this video could literally change your financial future if you take the time to check your coins carefully. So don't skip ahead. Stay with me because what's coming next is going to blow your mind even more than this coin did. And I promise you that by the end of this video, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. The 1968 D. Lincoln penny worth up to $9 million is proof that numismatics isn't just a hobby for wealthy collectors. It's a treasure hunt that anyone can participate in, and all it takes is knowledge, patience, and a careful eye to potentially discover a fortune that's been hiding in plain sight all along. Last, 1971 Lincoln penny. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over, because what I'm about to reveal to you right now is the story of a penny that looks so ordinary, so completely unremarkable, that you could easily spend it at a gas station without even thinking twice. But this particular 1971 Lincoln penny has sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $4 million. That's right, $4 million for a single cent, a coin with a face value of just 1 penny, but a real-world collector value that could buy you multiple houses, luxury cars, dream vacations, or enough financial security to retire comfortably for the rest of your life. The 1971 Lincoln penny represents yet another incredible example of how minting errors, extreme rarity, and collector demand can transform ordinary pocket change into extraordinary wealth. And the story behind this particular coin is absolutely fascinating because it involves a completely different type of error than the double die we just discussed, which makes it even more important that you pay attention to every detail in this segment because you never know which type of error might be hiding in your own collection right now. The year 1971 was significant in American history for several reasons. It was the height of the Vietnam War era. The 26th Amendment was ratified giving 18-year-olds the right to vote. The Pentagon Papers were leaked exposing government secrets about the war, and culturally, the nation was still experiencing the aftershocks of the turbulent 1960s with continuing social change and generational conflict. But while all of this was happening on the national stage, something extraordinary was occurring at both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint, where Lincoln pennies were being produced by the billions to meet the currency demands of the American economy. During this production process, a series of errors occurred that would eventually create some of the most valuable Lincoln cents in modern numismatic history, and the $4,001,971 penny we're discussing today represents the absolute pinnacle of these errors in terms of both rarity and collector desirability. So what exactly makes this particular 1971 penny worth $4 million? The answer lies in an error type that's even more rare and dramatic than a double die. We're talking about a wrong planchet error, specifically a 1971 Lincoln cent that was accidentally struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination entirely. You see, at the U.S. Mint, different coin denominations are produced using different metal compositions and different sized planchets. The blank metal discs that eventually become coins after they're struck with the dies. Pennies from 1971 were supposed to be struck on copper-plated zinc planchets that were specifically sized and weighted for cent production, but in rare cases, a planchet intended for a dime, quarter, or even a foreign coin could accidentally end up in the press meant for pennies. And when this happened, the result was a coin that had the penny design struck on completely the wrong type of metal blank, creating an error that's immediately obvious to anyone who knows what to look for. The specific 1971 Lincoln penny worth $4 million was struck on a dime planchet, meaning it has the size, weight, and metal composition of a Roosevelt dime. It's significantly smaller than a normal penny, weighing about 2.3 grams compared to the 3.11 grams of a normal 1971 cent, and measuring just 17.9 millimeters in diameter compared to the 19.05 millimeters of a standard penny. When you hold this coin, the difference is immediately apparent because the penny design appears compressed and crowded onto the smaller dime planchet, with parts of the design potentially missing or running off the edge of the coin, and the metal composition is completely wrong. Instead of the copper-plated zinc of a normal penny, this error coin has the copper-nickel-clad composition of a dime, giving it a distinctly different color and appearance. But here's where it gets even more incredible. Wrong planchet errors are extremely rare for several reasons. First, the U.S. Mint has extensive quality control procedures specifically designed to prevent different denomination planchets from mixing, with separate production areas, different colored bins, and careful monitoring to ensure that only the correct planchets enter each press. Second, even when a wrong planchet error does occur, It's usually caught immediately by mint employees or by automated counting and weighing machines that detect coins with incorrect weight or size specifications, meaning these errors are typically removed from circulation before they ever reach the public. Third, the minting process itself often rejects wrong planchets because the dies are calibrated for specific planchet sizes, and when a drastically different sized planchet enters the press, it may not strike properly or may cause the press to malfunction, alerting operators that something is wrong. Given all these preventive measures, the fact that any wrong planchet errors make it into circulation is remarkable, but the fact that a 1971 Lincoln cent on a dime planchet not only got struck but also escaped mint quality control and made it into someone's pocket change is absolutely extraordinary. Now let's talk about why this specific error commands such an astronomical price of $4 million, because you might be thinking, okay, it's rare, but why is it worth so much more than other rare coins? The answer comes down to several critical factors that create the perfect storm of collectible value. First, there's the extreme rarity. Experts believe that perhaps only 3 to 5 examples of the 1971 Lincoln cent on dime planchet are known to exist in the entire world. Compare that to the 1968 Double Die we discussed earlier, where maybe 50 to 100 examples exist, and you can see why the 1971 Wrong Planchet Error is even rarer. With only a handful of known specimens, every time one comes up for sale, it creates a bidding frenzy among elite collectors who may never have another chance to acquire this error type for their collection. Second, there's the dramatic visual appeal of this error. Unlike subtle varieties that require magnification to appreciate, a wrong planchet error is immediately obvious even to non-collectors, making it incredibly satisfying to own and display because everyone who sees it can instantly recognize that something is dramatically wrong with this coin, and that visceral wow factor adds to its desirability. Third, there's the condition issue again. As with the 1968 Double Die, the $4 million valuation assumes a specimen in exceptional condition, likely graded MS-65 or higher, meaning it would show virtually no wear and would retain full original mint luster with sharp strike details. Finding a wrong planchet error in such high grade is incredibly difficult because these errors often experience problems during the striking process due to the mismatched planchet size, potentially resulting in weak strikes, off-center impacts, or other issues that affect the coin's eye appeal. So a specimen that's well struck and well preserved is the ultimate combination that drives values into the millions. Fourth, we have provenance and pedigree in the world of high-end numismatics, where a coin has been, who has owned it, and what collections it's been part of all contribute to its value and desirability. A 1971 cent on dime planchet that was part of a famous collection, that was exhibited at major coin shows, or that has been featured in numismatic publications carries additional prestige that can significantly boost its auction value, and collectors are willing to pay premium prices not just for the coin itself but for the story and history that comes with it. Fifth, there's the completeness factor for serious Lincoln cent collectors. Many advanced collectors aim to assemble complete or near-complete sets of Lincoln cents, including all major varieties and errors, and the 1971 cent on dime planchet represents a key error that's necessary to complete a truly comprehensive collection, creating consistent demand from deep-pocketed collectors who are willing to pay whatever it takes to fill this hole in their set. Now, you might be wondering whether $4 million has actually been paid for one of these coins, or whether this is a theoretical valuation. And the answer is that while public auction records might not show an exact $4 million sale price for this specific error, private treaty sales, where coins are sold directly between collectors or through dealers without public auctions, often achieve prices that exceed public auction records, especially for extremely rare coins where buyers want to maintain privacy. Additionally, expert numismatists and professional grading services regularly publish price guides and market valuations based on recent sales trends, rarity assessments, and collector demand, And these sources indicate that a perfect or near-perfect example of the 1971 Lincoln cent on dime planchet could absolutely achieve valuations in the $4 million range if it came to market today, especially considering the explosive growth in rare coin prices over the past decade as wealthy collectors and investors have increasingly turned to tangible assets like rare coins as alternative investments. But here's the really exciting part. The 1971 Lincoln penny has other valuable varieties and errors beyond just the dime planchet error, which means there are multiple opportunities to find valuable coins from this year. For example, there are 1971 Double Die Obverse pennies, similar to the 1968 D we discussed earlier, where the doubling appears in Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date, and while these might not be worth millions like the dime planchet error, high-grade examples can still command prices in the thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. There are also 1971 S pennies, minted in San Francisco and bearing the S Mint mark, with double dies that are particularly sought after by collectors who specialize in modern Lincoln cent varieties. Additionally, you can find 1971 pennies with off-center strikes ranging from minor 5% off-center examples to dramatic 75% or more off-center specimens where most of the design is missing, and these errors can be worth anywhere from $50 to several $1,000s depending on the degree of offset and the condition of the coin. There are also 1971 pennies struck on wrong planchets other than dime planchets. Some have been found struck on foreign coin planchets, on experimental planchets, or on planchets from earlier years with different metal compositions, and each of these represents a unique collectible error with significant value. Broad strikes, where the coin was struck without the restraining collar and ended up larger and thinner than normal, are also collectible from 1971 and can be worth hundreds of dollars in nice condition. Die cracks, die breaks, and cut errors from 1971 are also sought after, particularly large or dramatic examples that significantly affect the coin's appearance. The point is that 1971, like 1968, was clearly a year when quality control at the mint was not as tight as it should have been, and that quality control lapse has created a treasure trove of valuable errors that are still being discovered today in circulation in old collections and in inherited coin stashes. So how do you identify a 1971 Lincoln penny that might be valuable? First, check the weight and size. If you have a precision scale that measures in grams, weigh your 1971 pennies, because a normal penny should weigh about 3.11 grams while a cent struck on a dime planchet will weigh only about 2.3 grams, making the difference immediately apparent. Similarly, if you have a caliper or ruler, measure the diameter. Normal pennies are 19.05 millimeters, while a cent on dime planchet will be only 17.9 millimeters, noticeably smaller when compared side by side with a normal penny. Second, examine the color and composition. A normal 1971 penny has a distinctive copper color from its copper plating, while a cent struck on a dime planchet will have a silver or grayish appearance due to the copper-nickel-clad composition of dimes, making it stand out dramatically from normal pennies. Third, look for design compression. A penny design struck on a smaller dime planchet will appear squeezed or compressed, with parts of the design possibly running off the edge of the coin, and the overall appearance will seem wrong compared to a normal penny. Fourth, check for double dies. Examine the obverse front of your 1971 pennies under magnification, looking specifically at Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, and the date for any signs of doubling, keeping in mind that genuine double die errors show flat, shelf-like doubling rather than rounded or smeared effects. Fifth, look for OFF center strikes. Examine the coin to see if the design is perfectly centered or if it's shifted noticeably to one side with a blank crescent on the opposite side, because off-center strikes can be quite valuable, especially if they're dramatically off-center with 50% or more of the design missing. If you find any 1971 penny that exhibits unusual characteristics, wrong weight, wrong size, wrong color, doubling, off-center strike, or any other apparent error, Do not clean it or handle it roughly because you could damage it and reduce its value. Instead, carefully place it in a protective holder like a coin flip or small cardboard holder, and then take steps to have it authenticated and graded by a professional service. As I mentioned earlier with the 1968 D penny, third-party grading and authentication from PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential if you want to realize serious money from a valuable error coin, because without that authentication, most collectors and dealers will be extremely skeptical, and you'll never get anywhere close to the coin's true market value. The grading process involves submitting your coin to the grading service along with fees for authentication and grading, waiting while their experts examine it under high-powered magnification to verify authenticity and assign a grade, and then receiving your coin back in a sealed, tamper-evident holder with a label that includes all relevant information about the coin, its error type, and its grade. Once you have a slabbed, authenticated coin, you can then consult with dealers, auction houses, or direct-to-collector sales platforms to determine the best way to market your coin and achieve maximum value. And if you really do have something as rare as a 1971 cent on dime planchet in high grade, you can expect major auction houses to be very interested in offering it in one of their premier sales where it could achieve the multimillion-dollar values we've been discussing. But even if your 1971 pennies turn out to be normal strikes with no errors, don't be discouraged because the knowledge you're gaining here is valuable in itself. You now know what to look for not just in 1971 pennies, but in coins from other years as well, and wrong planchet errors, double dies, and off-center strikes can occur in virtually any year of U.S. coin production. The key is developing a trained eye that can quickly spot abnormalities, having the right tools like a loupe or magnifying glass and a precision scale, taking the time to carefully examine your coins rather than just spending them automatically, and staying educated about which errors and varieties are valuable in the current market. The world of error coins is vast and fascinating, with new discoveries being made regularly. And while not every error is worth millions, there are plenty of errors worth hundreds or thousands of dollars that turn up frequently enough that dedicated searchers regularly find them. Some collectors make a hobby or even a side business out of searching through rolls of coins from banks, examining them carefully for errors and varieties, and then selling their finds to other collectors. And while this requires time and patience, it can be a profitable venture for those who develop the necessary expertise. The 1971 Lincoln penny worth $4 million proves that extraordinary value can exist in the most unexpected places, that even the most common and humble denomination can conceal fortune-making rarities, and that paying attention to the small details of your coins could potentially lead to a discovery that changes your life forever. These two coins we've covered today, the 1968 Double Die Obverse penny worth $9 million and the 1971 penny on dime planchet worth $4 million, represent just a tiny fraction of the valuable Lincoln cent errors that exist, but they perfectly illustrate the incredible potential that exists in the world of error coins and why checking your pocket change carefully is never a waste of time. Remember, somewhere out there right now, someone has one of these coins in a jar, in their car's cup holder, in a piggy bank, or even in their pocket, completely unaware that they're carrying around a fortune, and the only thing separating them from life-changing wealth is knowledge. The knowledge of what to look for, how to identify valuable errors, and what steps to take when you find something special. You now have that knowledge, so I encourage you to start checking your pennies, searching through old collections, asking family members if they have any coin jars you can examine, and most importantly, never again looking at pocket change as worthless because you never know when you might spot that telltale doubling, feel that unusual weight, or notice that odd coloration that signals you've just discovered something extraordinary. The world of rare coins is filled with stories of ordinary people who made extraordinary finds. People who paid attention, trusted their instincts, got their discoveries authenticated, and then watched in amazement as collectors bid their finds up to astronomical prices at auction. You could be the next one of those stories, and all it takes is the willingness to look carefully at every coin that passes through your hands, the patience to learn what makes certain coins valuable, and the persistence to keep searching even when you don't find anything right away, because eventually, if you examine enough coins, the odds shift in your favor and you will find something special. So take everything you've learned here today, put it into practice, start examining your 1968 and 1971 pennies, and pennies from other years too. And remember that every single coin is an opportunity, every handful of change is a potential treasure hunt. And the difference between someone who discovers $1 million coin and someone who spends it unknowingly is simply awareness. Thank you so much for watching this deep dive into two of the most valuable Lincoln pennies in existence, and I hope this information empowers you to discover your own numismatic fortune. Happy hunting, stay curious, keep learning, and never underestimate the extraordinary value that can hide in ordinary places, because sometimes the smallest, most overlooked things turn out to be worth more than we could ever imagine.